Hello everyone, my name is SH Monsterartist, and welcome back to another unboxing and review. Today we'll be looking at the 2019 SH Monsterarts Mothra and Rodan Double Pack. Now, going into this, I understand that there's been very mixed reviews about these figures, but nonetheless, I'm just excited personally to finally have a complete King of the Monsters set. And don't worry, this will not be canceling out the photo shoot for the 2019 Burning Godzilla that I have promised you as well. So, before we take a look at the figures, let's take a look at the box itself. Starting off, we have... Let me move them off to the side really quickly. Starting off, of course, we have our very nice duotone Mothra and Rodan. Some nice text at the top. Your typical Bandai logo and such at the bottom. Very nice 65 logo with the legendary. Pretty standard box. I like the fact that it's, as I said, duotone. Some very nice photos of the figure on back. And then kind of just like that color split down the box, which I really like. At the bottom, same typical legal mumbo jumbo that I'm not quite going to get into. But as this is not a box set like the poster version Godzilla, this is likely going to be a very quick unboxing and review. Obviously, we have our instructions telling us about the new flight stand mechanics, especially regarding a figure as tiny as the Mothra. I think that'll be very interesting to see. But with that said, let's start getting them out of their plastic imprisonment. So right away, I have to say that I'm impressed with the Mothra's size. I know a lot of people were saying that it was going to be smaller than this, which was probably the more concerning bit, but I mean, for scale, I'll do some size comparisons with this figure at the end, just that way you guys can get an idea. But let me pause the video and I'll get them out of the box. Okay, now that we've got our figures out of the box, let's take a look at some accessories. So of course, to start out with, we have two Tamashii Nation bases, which will be very helpful in supporting these flying creatures, which I have just... Ooh, Mothra, do not fall. Which I have just set up very gently on my display table. So that's a pretty decent size comparison between the two. Additionally to that, we have two support cranes. And nicely enough, they were willing to give us both a clamp and a flight cradle for Rodan. So we can get him in a bit more of action poses with this, and a standard flying pose with this. So very nice on their end. And then probably the most unique part of this set in terms of accessories is this very tiny support piece, which would go with our very tiny Mothra. I'm not upset about her size, to be quite honest. This is, again, obviously I would have preferred a little bit bigger, because I don't feel that this was exactly the rough size comparison when Mothra stabbed Rodan in the film. I mean, that stinger was pretty large, and if you compare that to the size of what we're getting here, I don't feel as though the size is exactly in scale. However, the wings do look good. The wings look good, and I would say that the scaling on Mothra's body is the only part of this set that I would necessarily improve. Everything else so far seems to be going extremely well. I've dabbled a little bit with the Rodan's articulation, just that way I have an idea of what to say for this. But going into Rodan, as you can see, he has very nice, expressive wing poses. So obviously you can do a bit more of like that bowing scene at the end. You can clearly do his standard flight by moving his neck up and untwirling his torso a bit. So you get a very nice widespread shot. Let me focus that a bit more. You get a very nice widespread shot. You got some nice articulation in the head, where you can look pretty far down, pretty decent up, left, right, open the mouth. Mouth doesn't open as wide as I would like, but I think that's still a pretty decent amount for what you're getting here. Wings can go very far up, as you can see there. Very far down. They can flap. I think the Rodan was certainly a very good I'm still amazed because as someone who does not yet own a Rodan figure, I think this came out really nicely. Get this nice back articulation. You have some articulation in the legs here. You can rotate those, move them forward and back, it looks like. Yep. All right, Rodan, very solid release. I have to say I'm actually impressed, because I was not expecting anything quite this good from the set based on what I was seeing, but feeling it here in my hands, I think that this is a really good release on their end. Not to mention he looks amazing. Look at the detailing on this wing. I know my camera can't really properly capture it, but that's a really amazing sculpt. The paint application's pretty good. He's got a nice solid like burgundy, brown, reddish across all the way. So that looks really nice. I even loved the kept his original shape of his tail, which I know was in the film, but still love to see it on the figure. But let's move on to the Mothra. Moving on to the Mothra 2019 SH Monsterart. Again, she is very tiny. I mean, I don't have a very big thumb, but she's barely half of that size. But again, you have very nice articulation in the wings. And like I said, she still looks very good. She's just very out of scale almost. I still prefer this to the NECA, in all honesty, though. She's very orange in the body, which isn't much of a problem. I actually like that coloration much more in person than I thought I would. Let me see how close I can get her here without making her look like a potato. As you can see, there's some very nice, detailing on her sculpt, which some people said got washed away by the orange coloration. I still think it's fairly noticeable. Again, you have very nice patterning on the wings all the way down. Nice texturing to them as well. Going into Mothra's body herself, you see she has her nice antenna. Obviously, she has her arms, which I do not believe are articulated, but they are made out of a softer rubber material. So that way they do not break, given how frail this figure could have been. So it was a very good idea on their part. Obviously, you get articulation. This is a twist here. Cannot say that the body itself has any articulation, as I have not found any, because it just seems to be made of a softer plastic material which will bend back in place, which again is a very good idea for a figure that could have ended up being so frail that me just touching it could have shattered it. But again, going into the wings, you get some articulation with the lower wing here. Obviously, you get a very nice broader size with the upper wing. And let's get these two together, and then I'll get them together for some size comparisons. Okay, now for some size comparisons. First off, I will be using the SH Monsterarts Mothra special color version. As we can see, she's most certainly bigger than her new 2019 counterpart by quite a long shot. However, they share a similar wingspan. Let me get a higher up shot of that, so that way you can see that they are roughly the same size in terms of wings, so is the Rodan. But in terms of body size, I think we all know how that one's ending. Let's move her to the side here. And down. And then up next, of course, we have the newly released Godzilla 2019 poster version, which, honestly, I would say is pretty in scale with everything, and reconsidering the size of the Mothra, I would say that's pretty accurate from what we saw in the film, now that I'm thinking about it. I would still, maybe if it was stylized, I'd prefer that they scaled her up a bit. But as we can see, spine to head to tail, we can see that there's a pretty nice size there with the figures. Overall, I would give this set, for the price I paid, I'm fairly happy with it. The Mothra seems to be a bit more of a companion piece to the Rodan, and that's quite alright. Because for as astounding as this Rodan is, I really wasn't expecting much. So the fact that we got what we did, I'm honestly really impressed by. So I would say this was another fantastic release in their line. I can't really think of anything that I would have done to improve it. Maybe some accessories like a Mothra larva or the Argo jet. But overall, with what we got, I have to say I'm pretty happy in terms of their sculpt, especially with the rigid lines here on Rodan's wing, all the volcanic texturing, Mothra's wonderful paint on her wings, the articulation in the Rodan. The fact that we got both a flight cradle and a harness for Rodan is very nice as well. Let's get you out of the shot. But Overall, I would say this is a very nice release, and even in aftermarket prices, if you're a fan of Kingdom Monsters, I would definitely say it's worth picking up. But until next time, I've been SH Monster Artist. Thank you for watching.